Hi, my name is Brandon with Memphis Record Pressing, and today we're going to talk about the rising demand for short-run vinyl manufacturing. Why less is more for artists and fans. So let's get into it.
Access granted.
Short-run vinyl has been very challenging for us as a manufacturer, and really for all vinyl manufacturers, because the amount of setup that's involved to make a vinyl record is extensive and expensive. And so for the longest time, that minimum threshold, that barrier of entry to get into vinyl manufacturing has been 300 units. And that's primarily because of the costs and the time involved just to get everything set up to get to that point. So as we've grown and as we've expanded, not only in Memphis, but just as an industry, as the industry has evolved since its resurgence now, a decade, 15 years or so ago, we have spent a lot of time in our industry and specifically at Memphis Record Pressing in just maximizing efficiencies. What are the things that we can do to make that initial setup a little less painful so that we can actually offer something that's more affordable for the independent artists? And so I think that what we're seeing now is we're seeing the results or the ramifications of all of the work that we've had and we've put in over the past really 4 to 5 years, specifically at Memphis Record Pressing, with allowing us now to be able to offer shorter run programs that aren't super painful on our side, but lower that barrier of entry to the independent artist to allow them to step into the format of vinyl. And related to that, that as vinyl has grown and really exploded in the last 5 years, really in a post-COVID world, vinyl has literally exploded and become, part of the mainstream consciousness. Now we see that everybody in that independent space, which is not just independent artists, but independent record labels, they want that. They're like, oh, I can have physical media that I can actually sell a tangible piece of my art form to my fan and to the consumer, that's a tangible expression of who we are, and I can do it at a reasonable price point, and I can actually make money on that. I think that's really what's driving the demand for it. So we've seen such a dramatic increase in the world of the independent artist. So let's call anybody that's from somebody who's truly independent doing it out of their bedroom to the smaller independent label that's working with those artists to try to get their music out to the world. So before we started Memphis Record Pressing, we had a CD and DVD company called Audiographic Masterworks. And so we've been in this space of the indie world for a really long time. And we were also independent artists back in the day. So we understand that mindset. We come at it with a full understanding of what it takes to make music, to perform music, and to try to gather and garner fans with that music. And so what we're seeing now is that, since the explosion of social media, and not just the internet, but the explosion of social media, now 15 years ago or so, there's the ability for really anybody, anywhere in the world, to put their music out for consumption. So it's a very crowded marketplace, but what we're seeing on the physical manufacturing side is the people that are really serious about it, the people that are getting out of their bedrooms and are going on the road and are performing and are gathering and garnering this fan base. They're like, well, I've got to have something to put in the hands of these people. And so more and more and more of those artists are realizing that there's tremendous value in getting beyond the screen. Right? What do I got to do to actually engage with my fan base? Well, you got to get beyond the screen. I got to get out and have to perform. I've got to put my money where my mouth is and show that I can actually do this. And then if I'm going to be there and I'm going to engage with my fan, what better way to engage with them with some sort of physical merchandise, whether it's a T-shirt or a pen or a button or whatever it is. And now, how can I give them something that actually has my music on it? And that's where vinyl record manufacturing comes into play. So the two primary things that we see that are driving the demand for vinyl are collectability and the experience of it. And so, we all have a device in our hands the vast majority of the time. And so but there's no real tangible connection to that. And so when you are experiencing a vinyl record, and that is everything that encompasses that, from handling that, from viewing that, to holding it in their hand, you have the tactile experience of holding that in your hand, to removing the record from the jacket, removing the record from the sleeve, placing the record on a turntable, dropping the needle on, maybe cleaning it off first, dropping the needle on. You have to be present to experience that. And so it's a new thing for the vast majority of people in this space. The other thing is collectability. So that experience leads to collectability, that people want to have a tangible expression of their devotion to the artist. You know, the fans, they are like, we want to go see the show. We want to take something with us, whether it's a t-shirt or the poster to hang on the wall. That vinyl has become that poster to hang on the wall. And so that collectability is probably one of the biggest drivers of this format that, you know, and people like Taylor Swift have done such a fantastic job in capturing that and kind of bottling that up. It's kind of like a genie in a bottle. They bottled that up and they're like, I'm gonna make this something that is so highly collectible that everybody that listens to my music will want that. You know, and that's why we've also seen an incredible increase and rise in the exclusive variants of all different artists of the actual vinyl. And so something that is exclusive to a certain retailer or is exclusive just to that artist's web store online. So there's like, okay, if you want this, you want my music, sure, you can go and you can stream it on any of your desired streaming platforms. But you want something that nobody else has, I'm gonna put 500 out of just this exclusive in this color, and maybe it's an exclusive release that has a couple of extra songs on it. It becomes a highly desirable and sought after collectible that many times is worth 10 times more on the resale market. So I think that there's a very important differentiator when it comes to vinyl, that vinyl is a collectible, not a consumable. And so I think that that's the thing that we have seen that just continues to stand the test of time, is that the consumer and the fan sees the vinyl record as a collectible item, like we were talking about earlier. It's not a consumable to be thrown away. It's something that's consumable to be tossed aside after they listen to it one time. I mean, how many times have you listened to something when you're streaming and a day later you don't even remember what you were streaming the day before because it was throwaway? You know, not that music is throwaway, but just because the way that it's delivered to you in such an instantaneous format that you can't even remember what you chose yesterday. But with vinyl, it's something that you have to be very intentional about. Again, it's the experience side. You have to be intentional about actually buying that and then opening that, and then if you're gonna listening to that, but it's the collectability part of that. You know, it's not a consumable. I think that's the thing that we're seeing that is really continuing to drive the demand for vinyl. You know, it's really hard to cough up the 40 or 50 bucks that it costs to buy a vinyl record. But I think that the drive and the demand for vinyl is reflective of the value that the fan is putting on that format, that they're willing to do that. Not only are they willing to go to the show, which is extremely expensive to go to a live show now. You can't go to a live show for 25 bucks anymore. You know, you're lucky to go to a live show for 125 bucks. But if you see, you know, the artists that are really capitalizing on the demand of vinyl, you know, they're putting their record limited release, you know, at the merch stand at their shows, and people are willing to go, and they're saying, you know what, that there's a tremendous value in having that, in having a piece of this artist to take home with me. And I really feel like that it's worth that extra 50 bucks to take that home with me tonight. So short run vinyl is not just for the independent artists, but it's also for those niche genre artists and composers and creators that are developing something that's outside the boundaries of what might be on normal streaming or normal radio, whether it's eclectic jazz, or for example, we did a vinyl manufacturing piece a couple of years ago for the board game Dungeons and Dragons, and it was for an anniversary release, and it is not the online game, but the physical game. And the company that owns that brand, they said, hey, we're gonna actually go out and we're gonna hire a composer. We're gonna compose a score that's intended to be played in the background while you physically play this game. And so that's extremely niche. I mean, they were targeting a very specific audience, but they said, we want to have something that is tangible to go along with the tangible experience of actually playing the game. You know, it's interesting, even people that reside and live totally within the digital ecosphere, from podcast creators to influencers, people like that, they are actually venturing out into the physical world of manufacturing vinyl records, because they're like, okay, we've got something that really it really hit hard and people really paid attention. How can we take something like that and we can bring it out of the digital ecosphere and we can put it into the real world? So even those folks are making vinyl record books, seeing the value of that and what it means to their fan base. And the short run vinyl program that we've got here at Memphis Record Pressing is a perfect opportunity for those tastemakers, those influencers, those folks that are making this podcast to be able to test the waters and see, okay, if I could take this out of the digital ecosphere, what happens if I make it into a physical manifestation? And so that short run program is a great low barrier of entry way for them to get into the format. Another area that we've seen of growth in the short run vinyl manufacturing program are brands and advertising agencies, marketing agencies that are using vinyl in sometimes a non-music way to deliver their brand in a physical way to the collectible side of the industry, but also in the music way by mashing those two things together. We manufactured a couple of records for a National Basketball Association team, an NBA team that was retiring a few jerseys, and they said, hey, we want to take the greatest hits of the play-by-play of this player's career, and we want to press it to vinyl because we want to send the fans home with something that is not only a collectible, but gives them a great memory of the career of this player. So it's a great example of what can actually be done with the format of vinyl, and it's a great low barrier of entry in the short run program. Another thing on the marketing and the branding side of things is that a vinyl record, whether it's in the short run or even in larger volume orders, it's a much lower cost point to get something that they're primarily going to be giving away to the fan base, right? If they're going to go have something custom manufactured like a die-cast aluminum piece or a bobblehead or something like that, that's going to be pretty expensive. But the vinyl record is something that, especially right now, because of the interest in vinyl worldwide, is something that people are really going to be tuned into, and they're going to want to take home as a keepsake and collectible at a low cost for the marketing agency. So we really feel like the short run vinyl program is going to be a huge part of just our operational business model moving forward, because we live in a day and an age where we're in this rental economy, which is part of that is what's driving the demand for physical. People are like, okay, I can rent everything over here, but it means nothing to me. I want to physically have that in my hand. I want to have that physical manifestation in my hand, but they don't have anywhere to keep all that. A vinyl record is huge, right? It's 4 times the size of a CD, and they don't want to go have those in their, want to take on not only the cost of the inventory for that, but they're like, how can I get into that and have more on-demand way of manufacturing this, something that I really want to support, whether it's my music or my brand or my creative endeavors, but I don't want to have all this money tied up in inventory and the space that it requires for that. How can I get into that in a way that is economical enough that I can actually make money, but also gives me the opportunity to get it quickly and in front of the fans, as in the lowest price point that I can, as quickly as possible. And I think that's what the short run program does. It allows them to get into that, not have a ton of inventory sitting around, but allow them to express their music and their creative vision in the format of vinyl.